What's up, gang? Welcome to The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius from Shadé. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I say, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius from Shadé. And boy, do we have a special guest. Shadé Zahrai is in the house. What's up, Shadé?
Woo! Hey.
Oh my gosh. Guys, you don't know this, but it is the morning. Shadé is you're in Southeast Asia. Is that correct?
Yes. So it's evening for us, end of day.
Dinner time for her and coffee time for me. So here we are. Are you guys, we're in Southeast Asia. Are you? What part of the world? Like just
Koh Samui Island.
Oh, I've been to Koh Samui. I did.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. I did New Year's 2020 there. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Right before COVID lockdowns?
Literally, I was there.
Yes. It would have been right after. Oh, was it before?
January of 2020, which was literally like 6 weeks before the lockdown started. I was in Koh Samui celebrating New Year's with my family. So,
I hope you had a good time. It is a beautiful place. Yeah, we're really happy. We moved here end of 2021, so we just missed each other by a year.
Oh my gosh, I was there. So I have a really good friend who he's not been on the show actually. Now I think about it, he was on How I Built This by Guy Raz, but he's a great friend of mine, and he did. There's I don't know if this product was local. Do you ever heard of Dang Foods? DANG. No. It's like a food. It's like it's a snack food company, and it was global, and they did. But his family's based out of Thailand. I mean, he's Thai.
Oh.
And so he organized this trip for us and 8 other families, and we did Thailand. So we did Koh Samui and we did Chiang Mai, and we spent about a week and a half in Thailand, which was my first time going there. So what an amazing place to live. How do you love living there, by the way?
Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it. It was the best decision we could have made for our business, for our marriage, for our lives. We're super happy.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous right now.
Come visit.
I'm moving to Thailand. So, guys, well, first of all, Shadé, thank you for coming on the show. I'm super pumped to have you here. For the audience, you guys know that we at The Greatness Machine are lifelong learners, and we're always out there looking for amazing folks. And I saw Shadé, her work all over LinkedIn, and we're going to talk about what she does in a second. I'm like, oh, I want her to come on the show. So, team reached out. Here we are today. Super pumped to have you here. If you don't mind, I'd love to go over your formal bio, and then we can get into some of your origin story.
Sure.
All right. So you guys, we have Shadé Zahrai here. She's co-founder and director at Influenceo Global, best-selling author and TEDx speaker. You guys know that we love TEDx. Was recognized as Adweek Careers Creator of the Year, and as an award-winning leadership strategist and global peak performance consultant to Fortune 500 companies. But I know that you weren't born into this amazingness and role that you're doing today as a global strategist and all these amazing accolades. Would love to hear some of your origin story. How did you get to where you got to?
So it's definitely been a journey full of twists and turns. I never expected to be where I am, but now that I'm here, I realize this is what I was born for. So I am so grateful to whatever powers that be that put me on this path, and that I made decisions that put me on this path. So I think origin stories probably, if I were to go back to high school and university, I did really well in high school. There were some unexpected challenges that I was dealing with later on. And so for me, how I coped with that was just dive into schoolwork, dive into volunteering. And that paid off really well when it came to university. I got really great grades, which gave me options. But with the grades came the expectation, oh, you should use those grades. You should go and study law or engineering or medicine. So my passion was always psychology. But I blended the two, and I thought, okay, let me do psychology and I'll do law to at least make, mainly make my dad happy, because he was suggesting it's a good thing to study. Love you, Dad. But I was never passionate about law, and it became a real sticking point, because I remember in my first year, I was sitting in class, not understanding a word people were saying, didn't understand the terms, I didn't understand the concept, and it was so difficult for me. And at the end of that very first class, I concluded I am not going to survive. I went to see the careers advisor and I said, I'm dropping it. I'm dropping law school. I can't do this. Now, what I wanted her to say is, are you kidding me? This is day one. Don't be silly. You'll be fine. Keep at it. But she just kind of looked at me, turned around, grabbed a withdrawal form and gave it to me. And I'm looking at this form and the spot for me to sign it. And I thought, gosh, she really doesn't believe that I can do this. And I felt weirdly defiant and I wanted to prove to her, but more importantly, prove to myself that I could do it. So I did. I stuck with it. I was never passionate about it, but I got to the end. And then I forgot that I was actually initially passionate about psychology. And I followed the pathway into commercial law because that's what everyone was doing. That just seemed to be the logical next step. And I was physically sick when I was at work because I was so anxious all the time. It was just complete wrong person job fit. At the time, I also realized, now I realize that I didn't cope so well with being told what to do. I like having autonomy and I do really well when I have autonomy. But when you're a junior employee, you're told what to do. And so that was kind of a hidden friction that I didn't realize until many years later was causing a lot of that anxiety. So realized law wasn't for me because it was making me physically sick. Jumped into banking and finance because I needed anything other than law. And I genuinely thought that I'll be in a new environment, new people. I can be whoever I need to be. The doubt can be left behind. Like, let me reinvent myself. But that's actually not what happened at all. The doubt came right along with me, and it was even louder because now I'm in a space where I really don't know anything. Now I'm in a space where I'm not passionate about the concepts of the area or the industry. So it was interesting for me just to reflect on how I've been such a people pleaser my entire life. And I have also carried so much self-doubt with me my entire life. I'm sure we'll come back to the topic of self-doubt as we move through, but it took me 7 years in the banking and finance industry before I recognized, I did 7 years, even though I really didn't like it because
Can I ask, who did you work for?
Yeah.
Who are you working for in banking and finance?
It was with one of Australia's big four, like top four retail banks, and they had commercial banking. So it was a great learning ground for me. But again, I just spent too many years doing something that I wasn't passionate about.
Yeah.
But it gave me great training so that when I eventually went into running my own business, I had a lot of skills that I could bring with me. So that was essentially that's the journey, but it was the passion for understanding people that I never lost. A lot of it was me trying to understand myself.
Sure.
But it was trying to understand what drives people, what makes people thrive at work. What are the high performers doing differently than those that are struggling? I was always paying attention to these things. And so even towards the end of my corporate career, I was finding ways, or rather people were seeking me out to coach them. People were seeking me out to run sessions with their teams. So I'd kind of made a bit of a brand for myself, completely unrelated to my day job, which would have been in strategy or I was in commercial teams. But it was someone who knew how to kind of educate or train or coach. And I had no credentials to do that.
Right.
But it was definitely like a passion and a role fit alignment, even though it was outside of what was expected in my daily role. So that planted the seed that, okay, I think there's something here and I need to pursue that.
I love that.
Fast forward, and I get to do what I love every day, which is working with people, researching people, finding ways to help people by translating research, translating insights from, 50 years of literature into really actionable strategies and tools that people can take and run with and apply in their lives to see meaningful change, whatever that looks like for them.
So let me ask. First of all, thank you for sharing that. As you were saying that, one of my favorite quotes kind of came up, which is "How you are anywhere is how you are everywhere." And so to the fact that there's these feelings of self-doubt and the not wanting to have autonomy, and then moving from that career in law to career in finance and banking and still feeling that way, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Because the essence of you as a human was that of someone that was not in the right fit, who wanted autonomy, who was still in corporate America. Tell me, how does that resonate for you?
Absolutely. It completely resonates. And I think the body has a way of telling us when we're not in the right place. There's a lot of talk about intuition. I believe that there is a really strong place for intuition, but I think you need to train it, because I remember there was this one time where I'm like, oh, my intuition is telling me this is a bad decision. And then it turned out I just ate bad sushi and I got food poisoning. So I was misinterpreting the cues. So it takes a little bit of time to know, like, is this just bad fish or is this actually like my intuition? But so many people find themselves not listening to those cues and then, you know, hanging out with the wrong people, being in the wrong environments, being in the wrong company, or trying to pursue something that they think is what they should be doing, but never taking the time to actually reflect. And as you say, it's like how you do, well, the one that we use at home a lot is how you do anything is how you do everything. So very similar. The idea of, you know, show up with excellence or allow those values to come through. Yeah,
that's interesting. And so it's, well, there's a lot to be said. There's a lot that I would say around. There's this. I'm going to go there because we're going to be talking a lot around like human performance. But I want to go there in a little bit because I'm jumping the gun. I'm like especially like when it comes to building organizations, I became like a geek about it. Like I like as a CEO, right? And I built a company from 0 to 1,000 employees and was obsessed with like how do I create an engaged workforce. And so I was like, I call myself like a culture building mad scientist. Like, how do you, I would go and just test ideas. For me, I feel like we're speaking the same language in that regard, but I want to like learn a little bit more because you going from this corporate, by the way, like Shadé and I share a Persian heritage. So when you told me that your dad wanted you to be a lawyer, I'm like, oh, that's like every like doctor or lawyer, yes. choose one, right? I was like, yeah. My dad was like, are you, Bobo? Are you going to become a doctor or a lawyer? I'm like, no, Dad. Like, I'm like, I actually thought I would become a lawyer because I like to talk and debate people. But anyway, you know, family has a lot of influence for a lot of people. Having that weight. When you're in your 20s, you don't know. You're like just trying, you know, like it's very unusual for people to be like, screw you, mom and dad. I'm going to go do my own thing, right? So carrying that weight, going into corporate America, going into law, something that your body was telling you that you didn't like, and then going into finance, which is a lateral move, but obviously that wasn't the right move. How did you then parlay that? You saw that you had this gift for engaging with teams and strategy and like the I guess the behavioral science of humans. How did you like parlay that into an actual like business and career? Did you actually go get credentialed or tell us a little bit about that?
A little bit of both. And it was corporate Australia, not corporate America. Just because I was born and raised in Australia. No, it's all good. Just making sure no one gets confused. Born and raised in Australia.
That's right. Sorry about that.
No, all good. So when these things were happening, where opportunities were coming up, and look, I will give myself credit in the sense that I got to a point where I started putting my hand up for anything. Anything that was going to get me visibility, was aligned with what I was interested in. There was this one situation where I moved around a lot. So every year and a half, I actually moved into a different space. And the company really encourages that, especially if you're actually a decent performer, which I strove to be because I never felt like I belonged. So I had to compensate and make sure that no one found out I was a fraud. It's classic imposter syndrome. But there was this one situation where I had just moved into a new role. The leader of that department knew of me and knew that I was passionate about a particular project and said, look, you literally came in this week, but I want you to be involved in this working group. So there were like 60 people in this working group. We spent 3 days workshopping something. These were people all across the company. And this was like a 30,000 person company. So people from every single department, every single level. I was probably the most junior person there in terms of how young I was and how few years I'd been at the company. We got to the end of this 3 days, and the facilitator, who actually was brought over from the Ritz-Carlton Leadership Institute to facilitate, he said, okay, everybody, we're going to get some executives coming into the room very soon, and we need a few of you to actually present what we have covered over the last 3 days. Who would like to do that? Now, I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this is an opportunity, like a career-defining opportunity for where I'm at. Everyone is going to raise their hands. So my hand shot straight up. Now, as soon as my hand was up in the air, I looked around and I realized, whoa, why is no one else's hand up? There were only 4 or 5 people who actually raised their hands. And the other 4 or 5 people were extremely senior, they'd been at the company at least 10 years. So that kind of taking action before you allow that voice of hesitation to stop you in a situation where, look, it wasn't huge. I mean, I wouldn't say it was a massive high risk situation. Or maybe you could say if I messed up in front of these executives, maybe that wouldn't go down so well. But that's something that I learned. Oh, so just from that, we got up, we presented to these execs. They loved it. They asked us to fly around the country to all of our main cities and our hubs and then present it to every single leader within the organization.
Wow.
So suddenly within 2 weeks, we're all flying around together, getting FaceTime, being introduced by the CEO of the company. And it's all because I literally raised my hand because I thought everyone else would. If I had looked around and noticed no one raising their hands, I wouldn't have raised my hand. I would have thought, who am I to put my hand up when no one else is? These people have more experience, more credibility. So that experience for me was a real turning point because I realized, there are opportunities here that you can put yourself forward for. You just need to be visible and willing to not know how it's going to go. So that idea of, this is actually a concept that we like to share. There's this matrix of discomfort and visibility or exposure, right? So if you imagine discomfort on the vertical axis and exposure or visibility on the horizontal axis, there is a direct correlation between the two of them. The more, and the opportunities that you experience. So the more discomfort you're willing to face, like, I don't know how I'm going to perform in front of these execs, and the more willing you are to expose yourself, and that sounds odd, to be visible while you do it, the more, not that kind of exposing yourself.
Yeah, come on.
The more opportunities.
Where's your head at?
But that's how opportunities come your way. You're putting yourself in situations where people see you, where people can tell that you're willing to do the work. And then that's how you attract things. And there's often people who say, oh, they're so lucky. I'm just so unlucky. But when you dig beneath the surface, when you start speaking to them, when you look at their history and their experiences, and then you kind of map them on this matrix, you realize they're either not willing to be uncomfortable, they're running away from discomfort, or they're not willing to be in front of people, with the risk of, okay, things may not work out, but that's okay. And so I truly believe, okay, there is an element of luck. Yes, and in fact, there are entire research areas dedicated to studying luck. But for the vast majority of us, we, to an extent, create our luck based on what we choose to do. So I haven't really answered your question, but that was a real turning point. And then from there, again, that visibility, I think, is what then prompted other people to reach out and say, Shadé, can you come and run a session with our team on... Well, there was actually a key moment between that as well. When we were presenting, I realized I really love being on a stage, especially the responsibility that comes when you're on a stage, because you have an entire group of people captive. Say, in this case, it was like 500 leaders in a particular city. I was speaking for not a very long amount of time, but if you calculate that amount of time times the number of people in that room, that's a huge investment. And you have a responsibility to be influential, to be impactful, to leave them with something. And I kind of liked that pressure. So what I did is I arranged a lunchtime, like a lunch and learn, where I just opened it up to whoever wanted to come along. We had 100 people show up, and it was just me talking about things I love, which was at the time positive psychology, mindset, confidence, and like the science behind it. And I had little palm cards that I'd written out with my script because I, was very nervous. And so my dad actually worked at the company, which is one of the reasons why I decided to choose it, because he spoke so highly of it. He was in a completely different area though. But he was sitting in the front row of this lunch and learn, which was really sweet. But then of those 100 people in that room, they all went back and told their teams. And then I get heads of department reaching out saying, can you run a session with our team? I'm speaking to the legal team, to the IT team. At one point, I had to stop accepting these because I had a day job and it was looking a little bit sus that I was constantly out. But that really was the beginning of it. And then people were seeking me out to coach them. In fact, at one point, there was a very, very senior leader who asked me for my help in preparing for a panel. Now, this person had been in the business for at least 20 years. She was at least double my age. And she saw something in me that she wanted help with. And again, it's only because I put myself in situations where I would be seen. So I think even from an entrepreneurial perspective, what we often see when we work with that group of people is you really do see that those who are out there, who are networking, who are putting themselves forward and willing to embrace the risk that comes with that, they often find themselves attracting opportunities that others may not.
Yeah, I love that. I love how it's such an interesting story. And I have a friend who do you know Hala Taha actually?
Yes. Yeah. I've been on her show. She's wonderful.
Yeah. So Hala's a good friend, and I'm part of her network. And
Say hi to her for me when you see her next.
I will.
Hi, Hala.
I will. She actually moved to Austin, where I live, and so I see her every now and again. But she kind of, like her side hustle was Yap, but she was doing all this stuff in corporate America. So you kind of reminded me of that. But anyway, interestingly enough, yeah, you said something, and we had a past guest on the show. Are you familiar with Gabby Reese? She's a famous American who was like a supermodel who was this famous volleyball player in like the 90s. But Gabby was on the show, and she talked about she has a name for what you were just talking about, and it's a little, you're gonna like maybe giggle when it says, but she calls it being a hand raiser. She's like, she said, I've always been a hand raiser, and I was like, oh, I've always been a hand raiser. I have a gift. I have a gift God gave me. If you believe in God, which I do, I believe God gave me a gift, which I don't have imposter syndrome at all. I'm like zero. I've never had it. I'm like, oh, like I'm just another human, just like you are. Like if you can do it, I can do it, right? So I've always just raised my hand. I'm like, I'm always the first person to raise my hand. Was that something that was natural for you? Is that something that you've always done, or was that an unusual moment when you raised your hand like that?
Definitely an unusual moment. I have not always been a hand raiser. I was generally someone who prioritized appearances over taking risks. So, and what I mean by that is when I think part of it is because I was in these industries that were just so misaligned with who I was and what I was about and what I enjoyed and my values, I never felt like I belonged. So I always felt like I was on the back foot, and I had to try and convince people that I deserved to be there. So I would often speak a certain way to try and sound more credible and more intelligent. And I often wouldn't speak up or put my hand up for things because I was so afraid of the reputational damage if I performed poorly, if I said the wrong thing, if it didn't go well. And that really held me back. I mean, look, it kept me very safe initially because that's why we do it. For all of us who are not Darius, we do it to try and stay safe because we don't want to experience the rejection, the fear of, the failure, whatever comes with that. Again, that risky uncertainty is too much. So we just say, you know what, I'm going to sit on my hands, not say anything to rock the boat, and just go stay gray, as they say. But that moment was really, a turning point for me. I just want to come back to the fact that you said you've never experienced imposter syndrome. This is brilliant because there is a very small portion of the population. So estimates are that 82% of people have at some point felt like an imposter. So you make up part of the other 18%, which is amazing. And can I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, please.
I would love to. So before let's say there's this really exciting but potentially risky opportunity and other people might see you mess up, what would be going through your head? Would you play out what could happen? Do you have a plan if things go bad? What do you do? What's your process? Because I wonder if we can kind of deconstruct how you do things.
Okay, so when you were talking about having discernment, I was laughing in my brain because I was like, "Oh, I don't have that." So the positive is I raise my hand, I just do things. So in Colby, I have a high quick start. I'm an 8 quick start for Colby for people that are familiar with that tool. And no. Have you ever seen the movie Free Solo, where the guy climbs there's a guy who free climbs, like literally climbs mountains, like vertical faces with no ropes. And they tested his brain, and the part of the brain that has fear, his doesn't work. And I laughed, and I'm like, oh, I have that when it comes to what we're talking about right now. My fear, that amygdala that kicks in that says, don't do that, you might get hurt. Mine doesn't kick in. Mine's like, do. And now I've had to train myself to like assess risk a little bit for stuff that's really meaningful.
Could I die? Maybe I won't do that.
Yeah. Like is the risk, like I do some risk analysis, like, hey, is this like risk worth the reward? Right. Which I've, but that took a lot of training to get there, but it's still, that is my default setting is do. And so, no, I don't have that, what you're talking about. I don't think any of those thoughts. And so the positive is I will do stuff and the exposure is high. And then there's sometimes some really great rewards that come out of that. The negative is I've been in spots where it's super, super embarrassing and painful. And I'm like, oh, dust myself off and just get up. And sometimes the dusting off takes months. So basically, I just took a recent risk and it didn't go my way, and it's taken me months of being fucking mad, pissed off, all this stuff, processing the outcome because the risk didn't go my way, right? And I'm dusting myself off right now. So the downside of being that is sometimes you take really big risks and then you have to process the outcome that didn't go your way. And as I get older, I'm like, man, do I have that in me to keep doing it? And the answer is I do. So I'll just keep doing it.
That's so interesting because most people, so vast majority of people would anticipate risks like that and then say, you know what? I don't think I can handle it if that happens, and therefore I'm not even going to try. So the fact that you don't have that, it's almost like a projection. What are all the things that could go wrong? And how terrible will that be? The catastrophizing. You just go ahead and do it. And that's not to say, because if you were to say, yeah, I do these things, I take these risks, and then things go badly, and then I brush off and I'm fine and I move on really quickly, then I would, that would lead me to think certain things about how your brain is wired. But the fact that you still experience all those very human emotions associated with that, I guess it's a very kind of public experience that you had because everyone's going to know what's going on to an extent. You're leaving a company that you helped build. So how do you work through that process? How do you work through when something terrible happens? So this is an interesting piece. It's generally because of things outside of our control that things get derailed and bad things can happen. When it comes to business, it's things you didn't anticipate. It's other people. It's, market volatility, whatever that is. And a lot of my research over the past number of years has been looking at the drivers of self-doubt. And one of them relates to what's called autonomy, which is perceived control, which relates to, can I control this situation, or can I at least control my actions in this situation regardless of what happens? And so when it comes to other people and things outside of your control, it's very easy in those environments to start to feel like you have no control. And then you start to feel disempowered. And then you forget that there are still things you can do, even if it's just control your mindset and your thoughts, even if it's just to make sure you're still getting out for your daily exercise and still eating well. And once they get forgotten, that's when things can spiral and it can become very, very dark. So is there anything you do specifically when you're dealing with this? How do you work through it?
Yeah, so look, I'm going to double down on something I said earlier, and then I'll tell you how I work through it, because and you don't know much about my background, I'm assuming. I'm going to give you some of my background, which is going to sound insane when I say it, because it's not normal. Mm-hmm. I believe if one human can do something, I can do something. I just had that belief. And
have you always had that belief?
Yeah, from a really like I'm not going to go be like play basketball with LeBron James, and I'm probably not going to be a professional like Olympian in certain physical sports just based off of my physiology. But in business, I like in things that are not like determined by your biological like physical ability. I'm 100% believe that if one human can do it, I can do it if I put enough energy and effort into it. I just have that that is a foregone conclusion. The question is, do I want to do that work? That's just the question. Okay. So that's a really helpful trait to have if you don't have imposter syndrome, right? The downside of that is you get your teeth kicked in a lot because you try stuff. So in my life, I think I've raised $400 or $500 million. I've generated businesses that have done like from zero, like literally ground up $1.5 billion of revenue. Like this is like just fully creating stuff from zero, right? I've had thousands and thousands of employees. I was a CEO from the zero all the way up to a couple $100 million in revenue. Like that's very unusual to be the CEO all the way through those things, right? And it's because I just always had the self-belief, like, and I'm willing to do the work, and I'm super curious. So I'm like, that's broken. How do I fix it? And I'll go and I will like relentlessly work until I fix. And I have a crazy work ethic, right? So that said, like when things don't work, I'm like, there's always a solution. And when things fail, sometimes, I mean, I've had some really brutal failures in my business life. Brutal. Like, I'll give you an example. I built a business when I was 25 years old, from 0 to 10 million in revenue, zero experience as an entrepreneur. This is a long time ago too. So 10 million was more like 20 million now. This is over 20 years ago. I had 150 employees by the time I was 28. The business went from that size to almost bankrupt within 90 days because of the global GFC that happened. I then was in financial, like my business stayed alive, unfortunately. For 5 years, I did not make $1 of profit. And I sat there and called myself a loser for 5 years straight and beat the shit out of myself. But underneath all, I mean, it was brutal. I wouldn't do it again, honestly. Sometimes they're like, would you do it over again? Like, what's the best thing you ever learned? I'm like, yeah, best thing I ever learned is like, don't do that. But I knew, and during that time period, I think I started 7 different companies to like, and finally one clicked, and then I had this massive success. I knew that if I just kept showing up, eventually something would work. I would learn enough. I would find the niche. I would find the angle, and I would be successful again. I didn't think it would take 5 years, but I kept showing up. And so for me, like, there's these little hacks I've figured out over the years, which is if you hit failure, then you just need to regain momentum somehow. And sometimes you just got to lick your wounds and give yourself time. Sometimes you have to be, as I've grown older, I'm 47 years old now. I've learned you have to give yourself grace, which is a process for me because I'm my toughest critic. But with some of the little life hacks I figured out was what's a small win I can have? You know, what is a small win just to regain some momentum and pick the smallest win that's going to give me that shot of dopamine so that I can like say, hey, today was a win, and then start to build off that and just remain curious and know that, hey, like, positive and negatives are going to come. So I try to be a bit like equanimous about this, which is like, when the positive comes, don't get too happy. When the negative comes, don't get too sad. I don't know if that answers your question, but that is how I think about it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to think, because as you say, whether the message behind that is you never know what the future holds. You never know if success is going to last. And we also know that failures, or when you're feeling downtrodden, it's also temporary. So it's almost like, you know, be grateful for what you have, regardless of where you're at. It's so fascinating that you said that you focus on the win. So when you're in that down space, when a business has crumbled or you experience some kind of a failure, you think, what is one little win? And there's the dopamine element, so the neuroscience element. There's also what social cognitive psychologists and researchers would call just boosting your self-efficacy. Because one of the drivers of self-efficacy, which is that's something you have in spades, which relates to this idea of agency. I can take action. I can do this. I rely on the skills that I have. And if I don't know, I'll be curious and I'll figure it out. That comes down to one of the other drivers of self-doubt. That idea of, okay, what is the smallest win right now helps to boost that self-efficacy, which then gives us what we need, as you say, to create your own momentum and keep moving forward. And it's difficult to do because there is like a really seductive quality with feeling a bit shit and wanting to keep feeling a bit shit because, you know, life is so hard and this is not fair. And then we get stuck in this spiral or this loop of thinking. And then we withdraw from people, from the things that we love, from the goals that we once had. And a lot of people do become the perpetual victim. Oh, life is so much more difficult for me than everybody else. And then they hold themselves back. They are literally keeping themselves stuck entirely based on what they're telling themselves. So it's a great hack.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So the feeling of shit is so painful for me that even though when I'm there, sometimes I'll do, I mean, look, I'm a human being just like everybody else. I'll do some of the things you're talking about. Like, why did that person's, you know, I'll be jealous or envious or all these other, I'll compare myself to other people. Again, as I've gotten older, I've learned not to do these things. But when I was younger, I did it a lot. But the feeling of shit is so like I don't like it so much that it actually gives me motivation to go try things. Because I'm like, no, I can't, I hate this feeling. Let me go do something. Let me go build something. I'm a manifestor and creator. So I'll just go, like, for instance, we were talking about this early in the show that I did TEDx. Why I did TEDx was I was in the middle of that 5-year getting my ass kicked. And I was like, and I had 2 friends. I had a friend that was basically won a MTV Video Music Award. And I had another friend who was a star on Broadway. and they were my friends from high school. She was the green witch in Wicked, okay, and like legit, like she was Elphaba, and her name's Eden Espinosa, and she was my prom date in high school, and so I see her killing it. Like she's like famous in the U.S. My friend Chris is famous, and they followed their passions, and here I am just like I wanted to make a lot of money, and I had done okay with that, and I'm like, man, I chased dollars and they chased their passion. I should have chased my passions, which was not necessarily just around making money. And so in the middle of, and I said, I'm going to do something that has nothing to do with making money. I'm going to go and I'm going to do a TEDx. And I learned of TEDx. I'm like, I'm going to go organize a TEDx event. Now that was, by the way, me focusing on building something that had nothing to do with me losing in business. It took me a year to build this thing. I did it. It was one of the best things I ever did. And it had nothing to do, but it was for me to create some momentum. I wasn't even thinking about it like, oh, this is going to help me build my next business, which maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But coincidentally, right when I did that, I finished that thing. My next business went vertical. You know, I don't know. I didn't even put two and two together on that until you just asked. Yeah. So yeah, I think that like if you dwell in the negative as an entrepreneur, as an executive, as a human being, you will get the negative. And sometimes we have to process the bad things that happen and we have to like shake it off, right? We dust ourselves off and stand back up. But I do think that like for me, and I love that God, I can't believe you're interviewing me. Which is awesome.
This is great.
I love being an interview, Shadé. Yeah, I think for me it's really easy. Like no, like I do have a pretty fierce fire in me, which is like, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this respectfully. If someone tells me I can't do something, my immediate response is, fuck that person. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. So when I fail, that's failure telling me I can't do something. So my immediate, my visceral reaction is, fuck that. I'm not going to let that win. And I'm going to figure something out that makes sense for me. So again, like I didn't ask for that. That was just given to me. These are all like gifts that I've been given that are good from a constitution standpoint when you have to overcome adversity. So I don't know how that measures up against the statistics, but this is all like, there was no training, no book I read. This is 6-year-old Darius looking at people being like, without saying fuck that person, but being like, F that person as a 6-year-old. And I swear to God, I was a little kid thinking like that.
Yeah, so hopefully different language at the age of 6.
Yeah, I'm like, no way, man. So
I'll show you.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's just how I am.
It's great. There's 3 things that I want to cover based on what you shared. So constitutionally, so you've identified that there are just things that you never trained, that gifts that you've been given from God, from a big part of it is also probably upbringing. What did you see modeled to you? That's a big piece of it as well. We'll never know for sure, like what were we born with and what did we develop because we saw it in our earliest years. Sure. But the other thing I wanted to mention was, okay, I want to touch on firstly the piece around emotions and dealing with it when it happens. And then the second one is around hobbies. I'm just saying that so I remember. So the emotions piece, you said, as entrepreneurs, when you experience something really horrible happening, a massive failure, you do need to process it, whatever that looks like for you. And sometimes it's kind of sitting with it, talking to someone about it, allowing yourself to just feel really shit. But then, as you say, finding some other outlet that reminds you that, hey, there's more to life, there's more to me. And it doesn't mean that you do that to the exclusion of building a business. In your case, you did. You were building another business while you were doing TEDx on the side.
Yeah. This was just like a side project, just for fun.
Yeah. So, okay, which is perfect because that brings us into hobbies. So what is so fascinating is that research actually shows that having some kind of a creative outlet makes people happier, more satisfied, perform better. There are so many benefits that come from it. But what I found even most interesting is that there was a study of about 500 Nobel-winning scientists. And they found that the Nobel Prize-winning scientists were 3 times more likely than regular scientists to have some kind of creative hobby, whether that was painting, creative writing, something like this, right? 3 times more likely. And then they were 22 times more likely to have a hobby that related specifically to some kind of performing arts, whether it is singing, acting, I don't know what other kinds of performing arts there are, dancing. And that is incredible when you look at the general stats. And what a lot of them have actually said is that having that outlet, that other thing that was completely unrelated to their work, allowed them to connect dots in ways that they wouldn't have been able to. It opened up their mind in ways that they otherwise would have been very closed off to. And I love reminding people of that. And your situation just perfectly embodies this. When you can have something, I think a lot of entrepreneurs also get very stuck in the, I must focus on this thing on my weekends, morning, evening. They live and breathe it, which, you know, I get it. We all get it. You get very passionate. You develop what's called obsessive passion. But that can actually completely backfire, because then what happens is it's called role identity fusion, which is what cognitive scientist Maya Shankar refers to, where you are your work, you are your businesses. And if they succeed, you feel like you are a success. If they fail, you feel shit. You feel like you have failed. And that's when people can get really stuck in this negative spiral. So having these other outlets, in your case, it was TEDx, it could be whatever. It just reminds you that even if things go terribly wrong in one area, you can still find comfort in that other thing that you did. For me, it was dancing. When I was at university, when I was working in the law firm, I was also a competitive professional Latin dancer. I got to travel around the world. I competed at the World Championships in Puerto Rico. It was crazy. And it was so different to my law school days or, you know, just the day-to-day that I had to do. It became such an enjoyable element or enjoyable aspect, because I could almost just leave one piece of myself and then enter this other world where I was able to be creative and do things I wouldn't normally be doing. So, you know, for anyone listening who doesn't have something they do outside of work or outside of building their business, I encourage you to find something. It doesn't have to be running a TEDx, because that's a lot of work, but it can be, you know, a weekly dance class, a weekly art class, a improv comedy training, whatever it is. Find something, because it will have unexpected benefits.
It's interesting you say that, and there's a term, I don't know if this is popular in Australia, but it's called being, when you're in it, you're in the bottle. You can't read the label, right? So I think that by having outside interests, you give yourself that negative space to let the subconscious do some work, right? To let that neuroplasticity connect the dots, you know, especially if you're a creative, which I consider myself a hardcore creative person. And for me, like, if I'm in it, I end up kind of obsessing all the things you're talking about. I've fallen victim to, but by giving myself that space, it allows these ideas to coalesce by themselves, right?
Yes.
And so I love that. In fact, as you said that, I'm like, yeah, I need to go like redouble down on some of my creative stuff, because I started playing ukulele a couple years ago for like
cool,
which is a kind of a fun thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And I stopped doing it in the last 2 years because I got too focused on my business. But like, yeah, I should go do some creative stuff, because that would be helpful for me to like kind of process what's next for me, right? Can I ask you a question? Do you mind?
Of course.
I'm gonna take the mic.
You already
back.
did. That was a question, so you can ask me a second question.
There you go. So first of all, like, you are a wealth of knowledge. I'm like, oh, I see. Like, you definitely have a gift for what you do.
Thank you.
How did you, when you're very welcome. So when you went into entrepreneurism and started, like, tell us a little bit about that work, because I think that the audience may recognize you because you do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. You do a lot of you're essentially teach people through courses, through the LinkedIn program. But how did that come to be? Tell us a little bit about Influenceo Global. I want the audience to know, like where did that go after you left corporate, and how did that lead to the LinkedIn work you're doing?
Yeah, so it's a funny story, actually. When I was ending up my time in corporate, let me just get my timeline right. In 2017, I moved from Sydney to Melbourne because I decided to do my MBA. So I was working in banking, I did an MBA, and I decided to move cities because in my mind I thought, well, okay, there were two things. One of them was, if I'm going to do a master's, I don't want to be in the same environment. I want to shift my environment too, because I'm big on learning and new experiences. So I thought, let me move cities. I don't know anyone. That'll be great. And the second one was, I did an MBA because, again, I didn't feel like I belonged and I needed to prove myself, and I felt like that would help. So wrong reason to do it. Anyhow, got there. The first year I was there, I met and married my husband, all in the same year. Nice. Happened fast. We knew, when you know, you know. I never believed that until I experienced it myself. And he had, so my husband Faisal, he has the most incredible background. I won't bother sharing all of it, but one of the things that he has done is constantly evolved and found himself in situations where he's doing things he's never done before, but he excels at them. And one of the things that he did, he lived in Korea for many years and he ran a boutique training company. And then after that, he went on and developed the world's thinnest cables in, with consumer electronics and moved into the solar space. So he's done so many things. But when I met him, he recognized that I had a passion for speaking, training, educating, translating science to help people. And he had essentially done that with his boutique training company. So he said, why are you still here? Why are you still in corporate? Why are you not doing your own thing? We'll do it together. So we decided, okay, we're going to run our own business. This was in end of 2017. Actually, within like a month of meeting and getting to know each other, he ran a workshop with me. So that was a really fun way to kind of get to know your future husband. Yeah. Anyhow, so we decided that's what we're going to do. But it took me 2 years from that point to feel ready to transition from the corporate space. But in the 2 years, because we decided, okay, that's what's going to happen, I was able to put feelers out and get opportunities to speak and work with companies. So I would just take a day of annual leave at my company and go and work with a Fortune 500 in another state. Wow. It was great. I loved it. Then we finally decided, it was March of 2020. We're like, okay, that's it. I'm wrapping up what was now a 10-year corporate career. We had a period of a week where I left my corporate role. And then we were always planning to move to Southeast Asia. That was always part of it because we love this region and it's closer to clients in the US and Europe. So within that week, we had sold our couch. We were about to sell our fridge and then lockdown. Yeah. Now we're in Melbourne. I don't know if anyone knows, Melbourne ended up being the longest lockdown city outside of China. It was rough. So suddenly, major. So suddenly I'm no longer employed. We have no business because every client engagement that we had lined up was now postponed indefinitely, and we knew what that meant. And no one knew how long this thing would last. So it's like a week of twiddling our thumbs, a month of twiddling our thumbs. Finally, I thought, okay, well, what does our business do? Our business helps people. That's what we love. So how do we help people when we're not able to go into the companies that the people are at and work with the companies and reach the people there? And this was a time when everyone was on social media. Everyone was kind of, most people were kind of experimenting with TikTok. So I thought, okay, it was Gary Vee who really planted the scene because he was seed. He was talking about it so much. Get onto these platforms, create video content. What's interesting is how I chose to do it. And I credit myself because at the time I didn't really think too much about it, but now I know why. I created 40 pieces of video content in one day. Wow. 40 short videos. And that way I had 40 days of content and I could not back down. And I'm glad I did that for a few reasons. The first one is I'm very, as I've gotten older, I'm very aware that like I have some days where my creative energy is high and I feel fantastic. And I have other days where I am just not loving life. Like my brain is still half asleep. And so if I hadn't batched my content all on one day, I would have come across one of these low energy days and thought, this is not for me. I can't do this, and given up. So that's one great thing. The second thing is I'm also the kind of person who likes to see traction quickly. And if I don't see traction quickly, I assume, well, time is better spent elsewhere. Let me shift my focus. And if I had done that within about 2 weeks, I would have given up on posting because, no one's responding. I chose TikTok because I had 0 followers on TikTok, which also meant no one knew me. So I didn't have to worry about the cringe factor of like a family or a friend or a business associate or a former colleague seeing it on a LinkedIn or an Instagram. So TikTok, completely blank slate. Day 21, one video hits the attention of the algorithm. People start watching it. It has about 30 or 40,000 views overnight. And then within 6 weeks, 235,000 followers. Wow. From 0 to over 200,000 in 6 weeks because of the 40-day strategy. It was insane. People were really thirsty. So we came on at the right time as well. Timing is a big piece. If we were to come in now with that content, wouldn't land at all because things evolve. Yeah, completely. So that was powerful because I then maintained that. That ended up becoming, well, 2 things. One, our way to help people because we never promoted our services. We never sold. We never made money. I haven't done a single paid promotion on social media, despite an audience of over 5 million, because it's not part of our business model. We don't want to muddy the waters. But the second thing it did is it became the best organic marketing because we had JP Morgan Switzerland reaching out, asking to run 3 webinars with their leaders. We had Nestle, we had McDonald's USA. So suddenly we're getting global awareness purely because I'm posting content related to what we do, which is help people. And that really spiraled.
This is all from is that all from that TikTok content? You hadn't
all
yet transitioned to LinkedIn?
Content. Yeah, I hadn't even transitioned to LinkedIn yet. So this is purely from TikTok.
Wow.
And all while in lockdown. So my husband Faisal, remember I told you that he's really good at just figuring stuff out? Sure. He went and he learned through YouTube videos and he bought an entire studio. So we have an entire at-home studio right now, and it's all just because he's taught himself. And it's brilliant. People who have been in the industry for a very long time will reach out to him and say, hey, what do you think about these settings? And what does this look like? He just taught himself from scratch. So that opened the door there. Then the transition came to LinkedIn and to Instagram. And I thought, these are people who know me. There's a really big element of what are they going to think? They're going to think I'm pathetic. They're going to this. So my mind was going through all of the potential unknowns, and it made me hold off for a while. But then finally, because we were doing so well on TikTok, I just thought, what the heck? I'm just going to post. And so I started posting mainly Instagram first. LinkedIn was more, I would select the right ones for that audience. Now, here's where it gets fascinating. We had someone from LinkedIn reach out and say, hey, we really love your social media videos. Can we license a few of them? Because we're testing a new nano tips format, which is vertical short videos for the LinkedIn learning platform, for the training platform.
Sure.
We didn't really know anything about it. We're like, sure, the videos exist on social media. Of course you can license them, pay us, great. And then they took them and ran with them. And it did so well that we now have we have more than 20 courses on that platform. And they're a fantastic business partner. They've opened up so many doors, and that came from the social media. So that was a completely unexpected. It's again, going to the matrix, the discomfort. It was extremely uncomfortable posting those videos on these platforms where at the time I had only maybe 7,000 LinkedIn followers, and they were all people I had worked with. So I knew them or knew of them or people I went to university with. There was a big fear element of what are they going to think? And it was only until I diluted them enough. So I had kind of 14 or 15K followers there where I thought, okay, I have enough new people in there now to kind of not worry about the old ones. And now at over 500,000, like I like when I hear from someone that I knew, they pop in a comment. I'm like, hey, Lynn, how are you? So great to hear from you. But yeah, it was amazing. Completely unexpected, but putting ourselves through discomfort, and people were seeing us because it's social media, and it just exposed ourselves to so many opportunities.
I know. What's interesting about that, I was just thinking this the whole time, like, had you not been in the position of like being stuck in lockdown.
Yes.
We have family in Melbourne, so they were there when that happened.
My heart goes out to them.
Yeah. Well, I have a whole story about Australia during the pandemic for you, but yeah, like this wouldn't have happened. Like, and it's funny. I've heard that this has happened for a lot of people I know who their businesses took off because of that captured audience during that time and putting themselves out there. And to your point, like high exposure, high risk, taking that risk, putting yourself out there, doing it consistently, and then out is born this amazing business and career. So that's so amazing. I want to respect your time. I know we're running late on time here. For anyone that's like, who is the ideal audience? Who is the ideal client that if they want to work with you guys, what can you do to help them? What are the things that you're doing for clients right now? Like, where can people find your content? Just kind of give us kind of an overview of that, if you don't mind.
Sure. So we create video content across platforms, haven't on YouTube for a while, but we're going to get back to long form. But the main one's LinkedIn for more professional skills, leadership, etc. Instagram for that, and also a bit of more social skills, confidence, mindset, etc. YouTube is essentially just the same. In terms of how we work with clients, so our model's changed a little bit. Now we're primarily focusing on speaking. So I speak at a lot of events, or I deliver webinars, like virtual keynotes for companies. We do have a program. We did have a program, but we've paused that at the moment because my big focus now is getting ready for my book launch. So I've just finished a PhD. Oh my gosh, Darius, hardest thing I've ever done. Anyone listening who has a PhD, hats off to you because there were so many moments on that journey where I thought, why am I doing this? And that was self-imposed. I chose to do a PhD. No one, asked me to. So I had myself to blame. But anyway, 5 years, almost 5 years of research. And then I've also just written a book based on a lot of the insights from the PhD, which is all about essentially, when we think of self-doubt, when we think of the opposite, okay, let me ask you, what do you think is the opposite of self-doubt?
Confidence.
Yeah, that's what essentially 95% of people say. But what's fascinating is that confidence is the result of doing something. You don't, and that's based on how our brain is wired. You actually don't generally feel confident before you do something. You have to take the action, which boosts your self-efficacy, which boosts your confidence, and then you can do it again the next time. So there is something that precedes confidence, and it is self-trust. Some people might say, oh, it's self-belief. But the difference between belief and trust, if I say to you, Darius, oh, I believe you, what you're doing is saying, okay, I believe you based on what you've said to me right now,
Sure.
but you might say something different or someone else may say something and then maybe I won't believe you. But if I say, Darius, I trust you, that's me talking about you as a person, your integrity, your values. So when we talk about belief or trust is far more enduring. So you have to trust yourself that you can handle whatever comes your way, that you will figure it out, that you have the skills that you have honed over decades and you can apply it. So the book is essentially looking at, it's called Big Trust, and it's the science of self-doubt and how to develop more self-trust based on these 4 attributes that we need to develop within us. And what's fascinating is that there are meta-analyses that have looked at over 100 studies, and they found that these 4 attributes predict someone's success, performance, how much money they make, how happy they are. So the book is coming out in January, still a little bit of time. But in the lead up, what we're offering for people, because pre-orders are super important. So I don't know if you planned, but I'm gonna pitch this right now. Pre-orders are really important when you'd probably know when you're launching a book or publishing a book. And so it's still 5 months to go, almost 5 months. But we want to give people something now to make it worth their while. So I have just launched what's called the Big Trust Community, which is a 6-month live program and community and resources all about helping to develop that confidence mindset, but more importantly, that trust in yourself. And so every month I'm going live with whoever's able to attend. Replays are made available. It's usually like a fair amount of money, but we're offering it completely free if someone pre-orders the book, so that they're getting that support along the way. And then when the book comes, they're primed to actually read it and apply what's in there. It's full of practical strategies, tools, things that are proven to actually boost your ability to trust yourself and take action.
Where can people get this, like sign up for this? Where can they pre-order?
So shadezahrai.com/bigtrust. We'll have all the details on there about the program, the bonuses, and then how you can pre-order.
And if anyone wants to work with Influenceo, where would they find you guys?
You can go Influenceo, actually better to come through Shadé Zahrai. So just shadezahrai.com and there'll be a contact form there and you can write to us and see what's going to work best and how we can support.
Awesome. You guys, we're going to make sure we put that in the show notes. I just realized something. I did not give you with the greatness question up front before the show.
You didn't.
I always do it during pre-show so that you can noodle on it. So I'm going to put you on the spot with it right now.
No noodling, guys. No noodling. All right. Go for it.
Shadé is totally she's not prepared for this. So I have high self-trust in her that she's going to nail this. All right. So you ready for the greatness question?
Yes.
Let's do it. All right. What is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Oh, this is a big question. I wish I had noodling time.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. The biggest. Okay. Can you repeat the question one more time for me?
So what is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Okay. So I would say, I mean, look, there are like some big moments I could share with you, but I think if I take a bird's eye view, so this idea of being like rather than being in it, being on it, I would say the biggest barrier is not trusting myself, outsourcing my worth, feeling like I'm not ready, convincing myself that other people are better suited, better prepared. And what helped me overcome that came from that hand raise moment where I didn't allow those thoughts to creep in because they would have convinced me to hold back because it's safer. But by taking that action in that moment, by exposing myself and trusting that I can handle whatever happens, even if it goes terribly wrong, I can handle it. I'll figure it out. That for me has been the greatest career accelerator of my life. Trusting yourself. And that doesn't mean that everything will work out, but you also trust that when it doesn't, you will find your way through. Which your journey has been a testament to that as well.
Totally, man. I love that. Shadé,
have you ever answered that question on this show?
Have I answered have I answered my own?
Yeah, the greatness question.
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, seeing as this has been very much like, a reverse interview as well, would you like to answer the question, Darius?
I'm going to do this. I'm going to answer it, but what I'm going to do is I do solos every Friday.
Oh, so cool. Okay.
And I do interviews on Wednesdays. So I'm going to plug the next solo. The Friday. So on Friday, you guys are going to hear this on Wednesday. 2 days later, I'm going to do the greatness question, and that's going to be a part 2 of the show for Shadé.
Amazing. In honor of me, I love it.
In honor of Shadé, and so you're going to have to listen to my solo if you want to know.
Of course, I will. I'll be there. Can't wait.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So guys, that's such a good. I've never answered that question before, but that's a really cool solo, which I love doing on Fridays. My gosh, like you are such a talent, and so the show never surprises me because I meet such amazing people. I'm so impressed with you and your work, and I'm so excited for the book that's coming out. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks, Darius. And just so everyone knows, this was like months in process to try and find a day that worked, availability that worked, and we made it happen. I want to thank you and the team for the opportunity to be here.
The pleasure is ours. Guys, please go ahead, share this. We as leaders share this show because everyone needs to hear this. This is a testament to what it takes to create greatness. Until next time, peace out, everybody. We love you.
Bye.
She's my lover. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers, and after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.